All right, it's now just past 6 o'clock, so I'm going to go ahead and call the school board meeting for Tuesday, May 19th, 2020 for the Des Moines Public Schools to order. Ms. Jenkins, can you please take the roll?
Miss Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Barron?
Here.
Miss Bradley?
Here.
Miss Caldwell Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Cody?
Here.
Miss Della Gardell?
Here.
And Miss Sawyer?
Here.
I want to welcome all members of our community to our board meeting. This is the fourth board meeting that we've held virtually since the initial stay-home order and the closing of our schools in March. We thank all guests, board members, and participants in advance for keeping their microphones muted until it is the appropriate time to speak. If you are interested in speaking to an agenda item and have not yet signed up, please let us know in the chat or contact Erin Jenkins at erin.jenkins@dmschools.org. The first item of business is an approval of our agenda. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda?
Terry Caldwell Johnson, approval.
Sawyer, second.
We have a motion by Caldwell Johnson and a second by Sawyer. Please call the vote.
Miss Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Barron? Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Miss Bradley?
Yes.
Miss Caldwell Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Cody?
Yes.
Miss Della Gardell?
Yes.
Miss Sawyer?
Yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. The next item on our agenda is approval of our minutes for Tuesday, April 21st, 2020. May I have, for Tuesday, I put the wrong date, 5th, 2020. May I have a motion and a second to approve the minutes?
So approved. Anderson?
Second, Barron.
We have a motion by Anderson and a second by Barron. Please call the vote.
Miss Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Miss Bradley?
Yes.
Miss Caldwell Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Cody?
Yes.
Miss Della Gardell?
Yes.
And Miss Sawyer?
Yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. The next item on the agenda is our consent items. We allow any person the opportunity to speak to the board for up to 5 minutes following the presentation of an agenda item. If anyone wishes to speak to an agenda item, you may designate so in the chat if you've not already signed up, or email Erin Jenkins at erin.jenkins@dmschools.org. Remarks must be germane to the agenda, and we ask that you avoid reference to personalities and character attacks, as those types of comments serve no productive purpose. We appreciate your input. As a reminder to the board and public, the board will not engage in discussion or deliberation with the speaker regarding comments made to agenda items. Discussion and deliberation will remain among board members at the board table, with speakers' comments informing said discussion, deliberation, and determination as
unknown participant is now joining.
Ms. Anderson, I believe you have the consent motion.
Yes, I do. I move that the board approve the consent items in accordance with the recommended action for each item on the consent agenda, including bills previously authorized, certified, and approved for payment by the board secretary in the amount of $4,557,012.73, and procurement card transactions in the amount of $130,167.29.
Caldwell Johnson, second.
Thank you, Terry. We have a motion by Anderson and a second by Caldwell Johnson. I do believe that we have one speaker that's already signed up on this. Is that right, Ms. Jenkins?
Yes. Is Kelly Rodriguez on? Kelly Rodriguez, are you on?
Yes, I am.
You may go ahead.
I filled out an application regarding my daughter, Laura Constant. She has previously attended North High School, which is our home school. She just finished her 11th grade year, kind of. The cutoff, I was made aware, was March 2nd of 2020, I believe. And I filled out the application to transfer to Sadell High School shortly after that, or I believe April sometime. I just can't remember when. The reason that I'm putting in for the transfer is because my daughter had some pretty significant issues attending North High School, and she is currently residing in a PMIC program at Orchard Place to handle some of those issues that she had behavioral wise and mental health issues and just some personal issues to seek assistance for all of those issues. And I feel that allowing her kind of a clean slate once she completes that program, which is a 4 to 6 month program, would be beneficial for her. So I'm just asking that that transfer be executed and allowed at this time.
Okay, thank you. Do you have any additional comments?
No.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Jenkins, do we have any additional speakers?
No, we do not.
Okay, I think other speakers are signed up for later in our meeting.
Yes.
Board members, any discussion or questions? With no discussions or questions, please call the vote.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Cody,
Yes.
Ms. Delagardelle,
Yes.
and Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
The consent items are approved 7-0. Ms. Rodriguez, someone is going to be reaching out to you immediately following this. In fact, I believe Dr. Ahart had said they were listening to your comments and should be getting in touch with you here shortly before our meeting is over.
Okay, thank you.
Next on our agenda is a public hearing. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item D1, fiscal year 2021 budget hearing and adoption?
I currently do not have anybody signed up.
All right, hearing no one, I will close the public hearing. Superintendent Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
Yes. I recommend the board adopt the proposed budget for FY 2021 following the public hearing in order to submit the budget to Polk County. Due to the school closures, the date of the hearing has been delayed from the typical April 15th date.
May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and the superintendent's recommendation?
So moved, Anderson.
Second, Barron.
Any questions or discussion, board?
Madam Chair, this is Terry Caldwell Johnson, and in the midst of everything that we've been experiencing with COVID, I feel a little, I'm not going to necessarily say inadequate, but maybe a little less informed about everything with regard to the fiscal 21 budget. So I am going to vote tonight to proceed, but I would like for us to spend more time at some point, maybe later this summer, just reviewing everything that's contained in the budget, so that especially for our new board members, we have the benefit of just providing a little more framework, background, and context for what's included in the upcoming year's budget.
I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah, we do typically get more information around the budget leading up to it. And I do know that we had also asked Dr. Ahart about some information regarding some of the public forums, and that was posted. Dr. Ahart, can you give us just that brief summary about how the forums worked and the number of questions and some of those engagement pieces? Do you have those available?
Yeah, if you can just hold on 1 second,
Yeah.
I'll pull those up.
No, that's fine. I knew we had asked for it, so I knew you'd have it somewhere pretty close to ready.
Hold on 1 moment.
I was looking
Yeah,
for
so we had and rather than, typically we host a budget forum, four different forums, one in each of our director districts, to provide the community to review the budget a little more closely, hear a presentation, and get answers to questions they may have. And as I mentioned earlier, typically in a typical year, the board approves or certifies the budget so that we can send it to the county by April 15th. That deadline was extended this year because of the pandemic. This year, and I guess I can't see this entire document, so here we go. So this year, Shashank, our CFO, and I created a video that essentially was intended to recreate the presentation that we would have provided live. And that presentation was posted from May 4th through May 15th. And every question that was submitted, we did respond to. There were 719 visits to the budget.dmschools.org webpage, which contained the virtual forum. And there were at least 209 online views of the video presentation. Additionally, we broadcast the presentation on DMPS-TV, but we do not have a way to know how many folks actually viewed it through DMPS-TV, which is our MediaCom cable television channel. Additionally, almost 17,000 folks saw our notice about the budget forum on Facebook, and there were almost 1,200 engagements as a result. And engagement basically means that folks either visited the webpage or liked or commented on the Facebook post. Over 2,800 people saw the notices about the budget forum on Twitter, and there were 78 engagements as a result of that. And then we've been sending out an e-newsletter. It was every week, or I'm sorry, every day of the week, and now we've lessened that to 2 or 3 times a week. But we did include a promotion online budget forum in 5 all staff and all family emails since the video presentation was posted. Each of those messages are sent to over 31,000 recipients, and about 35% of those are opened each time. So that means about, somewhere around 11 or 12,000 folks are looking at some or part of those emails. So we certainly promoted it as effectively as we could. We can say that the video that we can confirm, the video was viewed this year by the equivalent of all of the folks that attended in-person forums over about the last 5 years. So we think that more folks were were informed probably at a deeper level than typically has happened in the past. I think that about covers what you wanted me to cover in that question.
It does. Thank you. Any other further board questions or discussion? Okay, please go ahead and call the vote.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Cody,
Yes.
Ms. Delagardelle,
Yes.
and Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. Next up, we have another public hearing. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item D2, fiscal year 2020 budget amendment and hearing?
I do not have anybody signed up for that one either.
Okay. Then hearing no one, I'll close the public hearing. Superintendent Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
Yes. I recommend the board approve the budget amendment for fiscal year 2020 as presented following the public hearing.
May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and the superintendent's recommendation?
I move approval. Barron?
This is Sawyer, second.
We have a motion by Mr. Barron and a second by Ms. Sawyer. Any questions or discussion, board? All right, please call the vote.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Cody,
Yes.
Ms. Delagardelle,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. Next up, we have another public hearing. The public hearing will come to order. Is there anyone wishing to speak to item D3, public hearing on the proposed use of save revenue for an athletic facility infrastructure project? Ms. Sawyer or Ms. Jenkins, please call our speakers.
Yep. First, I have Jackie Norris.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great.
Yes.
My name is Jackie Norris. I live at 5007 Woodland Avenue. I am the proud mother of a soon-to-be freshman and 2 juniors in the Des Moines Public Schools. I actually want to begin by saying thank you for leading during the pandemic. Thanks to you and to all the public school teachers who have gone above and beyond to engage students and ensure they have the food and the engagement they need at home. Thanks for working so creatively to keep the community safe and still enable our seniors to walk across the stage and celebrate their academic accomplishments. I could go on, but I believe this pandemic has showed us now more than ever that public schools are resilient and providing the glue that holds communities together. I'm here to speak in support of the community stadium. However, do not doubt that my priorities are very clear. Our school budget should always put student learning and teacher support first. We should lobby our state legislators and governor regularly for more public school funding. However, I also believe that we should responsibly spend our capital dollars on infrastructure to support student athletes and student artists to enable them to accomplish their dreams. I speak in support of this concept for 3 reasons. Number 1, this community stadium is a great example of a public-private partnership and the strategic direction of the Des Moines Public Schools, and the one that I believe they should move forward in the future on. A public-private partnership is a cooperative arrangement designed to deliver improved services and better value for the money. For too long, city government, schools, community colleges, and state and private universities have focused on having their own things, their own gyms, their own pools, stadiums, and libraries. I believe this is not the right long-term strategy for a community of our size. The capital investments are too high, and the cost to maintain these assets with budgets getting tighter and tighter are not sustainable. This is exactly the right time to look up and to look out and find community partners. Just like the Des Moines school partnerships, such as the primary healthcare centers or the Skilled Trade Academy partnership with DMAC. My hope is that the school board will continue to encourage partnerships like these in the future. My second reason is about academics. You know, for some kids, it's actually not all about academics, whether we like to admit it or not. But they may love soccer, they may love band, they may love football. And while we should always put academics first, we should use every lever in our power to hook students into the school community. I often hear the school administration talking about building goals, which include every student being part of at least one school activity. We need to provide the schools and the faculty the infrastructure to be successful. And honestly, with more kids heading to obesity at earlier ages, we need to continue to invest in outdoor spaces for our kids to move around. Finally, I want to say something about Des Moines Public School sports and band kids. They travel around to all these fancy stadiums in the suburbs, and they don't complain. They have mismatched uniforms, and they don't complain. Their coaches and instructors have instilled in them a determination that is clear. They tell them that nothing else matters but the hard work, the drive, and the relentlessness they put into their activities on and off the field. Those are powerful words. I believe that we need to continue to identify ways, whether it be sports fields, science labs, or media centers, or other capital decisions, to ensure we give these kids and their community a reason to be proud. Imagine if one student recalls a sporting event at the new stadium and says the following things. I learned how to be a team player here. I learned how to work together to achieve a common goal here. I learned how to lose here. I learned that some of my best friends came from different races, cultures, socioeconomic status, and political parties right here on this field. Thank you for your consideration this evening of supporting the Drake Community Stadium.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, will you call our next speaker?
Dan Pardock.
Good evening, everyone. I'll say the same thing. Are you able to hear me all right?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I apologize for the length of my hair and the facial growth, but we don't have much choice these days. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for offering me the opportunity to speak. My name is Dan Pardock, and I live at 4118 Lower Beaver Road in Northwest Des Moines. I am a graduate of Hoover High School, where I, among other things, played football and soccer and was also in the marching band. I have coached football and soccer at Hoover for many years and am the current public address announcer. I'm also the father of a beautiful senior-to-be who will be serving her third year as Hoover's marching band drum major. I understand there's a 5-minute time limit tonight. I've timed my speech and may go a few seconds over, so I appreciate any grace given if I do so. A little background for you. I played football and soccer, like I said, at Hoover before Dan McClanahan Field at Kara McGrain Memorial Stadium even existed. My senior year, we played our homecoming football game against East at East's Williams Stadium and a home football game against Lincoln at Lincoln's Hutchins Field. Imagine walking into either one of those stadiums and seeing it covered in green and yellow streamers and balloons and watching the opposing team's fans sitting in their own visitors section. After much community effort and fundraising, Hoover supporters were able to build Kara McGrain Memorial Stadium at Hoover and later named the field after a great athletic director of ours, Mr. Dan McClanahan. Finally, we were able to host our football, soccer, and marching band students and fans in a welcoming environment just steps away from the building so many of us have and currently call home for 4 years. Now we're here tonight to discuss a $15 million taxpayer-funded investment in a stadium that will host 4 high school football teams and marching bands, with East remaining at Williams, 10 high school soccer teams, all the middle school boys and girls soccer teams, and Drake's men's and women's soccer teams. First, I want to talk logistics, getting those teams to the stadium. So let's imagine a football game at the new stadium with Hoover hosting Lincoln. Instead of walking down the hill like Hoover gets to do now, the football team needs a bus or two to get them to the stadium, and another one is needed for Hoover's cheerleaders, the dance team, and the athletic training staff and equipment. Let's not forget the Hoover Marching Band. They will also need at least one bus, maybe two, to get to the game, along with renting a truck to haul their band trailer. Right now, I doubt the Hoover band budget has anything extra to rent that truck and get that bus scheduled 4 or 5 times every football season. So now let's get the fans to the game. There was a really interesting comment at the North Community meeting where an idea was put forward to bus the students and fans from the school's parking lot to the new stadium. For Hoover, that could take at least 2, maybe even 3 buses to get all those students and fans there. So now we have a minimum of 6 buses, and I find it hard to believe the district will be successful in finding at least 6 more drivers and buses available on a Friday night. It's also been confirmed there may be 2 football games played at once, one at the new stadium and one at Drake Stadium. I know that we've heard from some people that that wouldn't be a problem.
Unknown participant is now joining.
But imagine not only the parking issues, but also the security issues as 4 teams, fans, cheerleaders, and support staff commingle at 10 o'clock on a Friday night. Also, the district has conceded that Hoover would play 2, maybe 3 home soccer games a year at the new stadium. Soccer is very near and dear to me. I've played it for a long time. The rest of Hoover's games would be played at Hoover's home stadium. I'd much rather be consistent for the sake of the student athletes and their fans and play all home games at the same location, home. There's no such thing as home field advantage at the proposed stadium. And remember that Hoover Field and Stadium will still need maintenance, mowing, painting, water, and electricity for the remaining soccer home games and practices. So now let's talk about the slide showing that since July 2000, DMPS has spent $0 on stadiums, which since the community meetings has been updated to include an asterisk showing that the district has spent people and other funds for maintenance and repairs, and now wants $15 million for a new one. So here's an analogy. I love analogies. I think they paint the picture really well. I buy my daughter a car, which has happened recently. Every couple of months I say, make sure you change the oil or your tires are looking bad. It's time to replace them, and so on. And every time she says, I don't have any money for that, but I'll hang an air freshener from the rearview mirror. After a few years, she drives up in a car that's one step from the junkyard and says, buy me a new car. It doesn't make any sense to keep money into this one since it's falling apart. That's exactly what the district, I feel, is doing to taxpayers right now. No matter how you look at it, the district's poor stewardship of the current district stadium facility should not be rewarded with a new stadium. I asked Mr. Ryan Rowley, the Hoover band director, if anyone with the district had reached out to him for his thoughts regarding how marching band would be affected. He has given me his permission to share that no one within the district has talked to him about this proposal. And I sincerely, along with him, hope that someone has reached out also to the students for their opinions about this new stadium. The Hoover community works tirelessly to build school spirit, and a huge part of that is playing home games at home. Our students and fans feel pride and excitement as they walk down that hill to the stadium they call home. No stadium, regardless of the gorgeous amenities, will be able to duplicate that feeling if it's not on Hoover's campus. If you haven't been on a DMPS sideline recently, you don't understand the passion the athletes, the coaches, and the fans have for their current stadiums. As I wrap up here, at the very, very least, please delay this vote until taxpayers are given the opportunity to speak in person. Everyone's attention is understandably elsewhere during this pandemic, and this vote has the appearance of trying to sneak something by everyone. The only option taxpayers have to counter a yes vote tonight is to gather approximately 5,200 signatures on paper, not electronically, in the next 2 weeks. In the world we live in today, that's virtually impossible, and it's bad optics all around. So as I wrap up, I just want to say I appreciate the opportunity to speak tonight, and will yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, please call our next speaker.
Jason Levang.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can.
Following up with what Dan said, I don't know that there's much to add. Him and I have talked a little bit. I am in complete agreement with him that we talk about our Des Moines schools being the heartbeat and the hub of a community, but yet we want to take the biggest event, most attended event out of that community. I 4208 Southwest 23rd, Des Moines Lincoln grad. My sons graduated from there. My grandparents graduated from there. So I have some history, my parents. I feel when you move us across town, not only are you going to see an attendance drop, you're going to see a school spirit drop. There's something about walking into that stadium for those kids. I also would like to know the kids' opinion. Have we talked to the current and upcoming athletes where they want to play? As far as the optics go, I can't agree more with Dan. It's just not the right time. It makes it impossible for the public to get their vote out there if we wanted to try to do something against it. You know, the students we've talked about, the transportation Dan touched on, every game's a road game. You know, to only play on turf when you play over there but not practice on, is that a good thing for our kids? Do they really get used to it? Does it help them? Being on the south side, I know the hardships of the people that live over here. I don't see how parents can get their kids to some of these events. Are they going to be willing to drive across town on a Friday night at 6:30 through downtown Des Moines during construction season to get their kids to and from games? I know MTA bus has been thrown out, but I don't think that's a good option to go through the transfer station down there. As we all know, there's been a couple ruckuses break out down there over the last couple of years, which I don't think is a good thing. Dan brought up the point, it's only 2 soccer games. The rest are going to be played at County. So to call this a soccer stadium for all our teams is kind of a misnomer, I believe. The one thing, and I did address a couple members of the school board this week, the booster clubs. There's a lot of stuff up in the air regarding how are we going to make our money back that we're going to lose by not being at our home stadium. Everything I've been told is the ADs are working on it. We're going to work with the ADs, but we've gotten no solid answers about how we're going to be able to buy food, inventory food, keep food down there. Those are vital sources of income. I know at Des Moines Lincoln, we give about $20,000 a year to help buy new uniforms, something that's not in the normal budget, so that we can get new uniforms every couple of years for our kids. I'm worried about the gate drop. I'm worried that we won't get as many fans. So once again, our income goes down. Once again, we're fighting. We've been very innovative on our side of town as far as creating new revenue streams to get to our programs. And I feel like if we give up all these home games, all we're going to do is fall back right to where we were. And all this extra work and money that we've got is just going to go help keep us even. The last thing is we do have to upgrade the existing stadiums, whether we play there or not. That has been a common theme throughout the whole thing. I would like to see a realistic number of what it takes to make each stadium playable, what DMPS can put towards that, and what we as schools, fundraisers, booster clubs, alumni can raise to make it so that we stay at home and play at home, the most important events of the year. Once again, thank you for the time. I appreciate all the hard work you guys have put in, and that's all I have to say tonight. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your input. Ms. Jenkins, please call our next speaker.
Marty Martin.
Thank you, and thank you, Madam Chair and School Board, for the opportunity to speak in support of the resolution to use save revenue for the new community stadium. My name is Marty Martin. I'm president of Drake University. The business address for Drake is 2507 University Avenue, Des Moines, Iowa 50311. My home address is 227 37th Street, Des Moines, Iowa 50312. Again, I want to thank the school board for the hard work and effort to get to this point since this was proposed back in November. I know you've been working very diligently internally, but also you've been gathering a lot of community feedback on the proposed community stadium. Indeed, you held a number of community forums that have been referenced by prior speakers in order to get that feedback. And I appreciate the diligence and the intention to make sure that everybody has had an opportunity to weigh in on the wisdom of this resolution. I also want to thank Superintendent Ahart and his staff for their hard work over the last number of months, but more importantly, for their work over a number of years to be prepared to build this stadium once they could identify the right location. I know there have been some starts and stops in that regard, but now they found a spot that we believe and we're willing to support in building this stadium. Also, as well, I want to thank my colleagues for all their hard work and effort over the last 5-6 months to get us to this point in time. You know, we come to this really motivated by 2 things in particular. One is our inspiration statement, which is to transform lives and strengthen communities. And we keep that in front of us to remind us that our work is not about ourselves. Our work is about others, both transforming lives and strengthening communities. And one feeds into the other. As we transform lives, then we're able to aggregate that and strengthen communities. And we do that through education, research, and service. Now, when it comes to service, we are constantly looking for collaborators, powerful collaborators like Des Moines Public Schools, where we can come together to achieve something together that we could never achieve on our own. And I believe that this community stadium is a wonderful example of that. Another principle that guides us, that very much informs our effort to be a part of this collaboration, it's not written down anywhere, but we talk about it constantly, and that is that we are going to be of our place, be of your place. And by that we mean we take great pride in the fact that we are in the Drake neighborhood. We take great pride in the fact that we are in Des Moines, Iowa. We are a global institution. Our reach indeed extends around the globe in many different ways, but we never lose sight of the fact that we are right here in our neighborhood, right here in our city. And we see that carrying both responsibility and obligation. Responsibility to be a great neighbor, to use our strengths consistent with mission and resources to improve the lives of others right here in our neighborhood, right here in our city. We also see it as an opportunity because we are proud to be a part of the Drake neighborhood, proud to be a part of Des Moines, such a thriving community, and all of the opportunities it presents, not just to our institution, but more importantly to our students, our faculty, and staff. So these two principles, first, our inspiration statement, transforming lives and strengthening communities, and second, our mantra of be of your place, come together to really drive our motivation to be a part of this community stadium. And this kind of activity is not new for Drake University, particularly when it comes to serving young children in central Iowa. We've been the home for Polk County Head Start for 35 years and routinely served 950 children through that program. We've been the home for what was the I Have a Dream Foundation, now By Degrees Foundation. And if you know their work in Findlay Elementary, you know what I'm talking about. We've been their home for decades and a collaborator in that work, really touching lives of young children, preparing them for great futures. We are now the home for the Burt Boys and Girls Club in collaboration with the Boys and Girls Club of Central Iowa. That club opened last fall. The CEO, the national CEO, has declared it the best club in the country, and that's because it is a collaboration between Drake University and a community partner, both of which come together to achieve something we could not achieve on our own. And the community stadium is simply the next big step in that. And it is a big step. This is a grand project that is going to have tremendous benefits for across Des Moines, as well as on our own campus. We're going to serve athletes, we're going to serve musicians, we're going to serve fans. We're going to find other ways to leverage this facility to serve our community, to bring joy to lives, to bring activity that is beneficial for all. Now we are ready. We stand ready to jump into this with both feet and to see this project through to completion. Our board of trustees has been with us every step of the way in vetting this project and approving it, and they are incredibly excited about this. We have acquired the property that's necessary for the footprint, and as you know, this is going to be constructed just to the east of the Shivers Practice Facility, which is the northeast corner of our campus, from 25th Street to 24th Street, just north of Forest Avenue. We have acquired all the property necessary and are prepared to donate the totality of that to Des Moines Public Schools. So it is an asset of Des Moines Public Schools, and a conservative valuation of that property is $2.5 million. We are prepared to raise an additional $4.5 million to build out the stadium. And so, as Ms. Norris mentioned, this is a really powerful private-public partnership that should be a model for many other things that could be done around this city. And we are working very diligently with the administration of Des Moines Public Schools to bring refinement to the operating agreement so that Drake University will bear a great responsibility to support and operate this facility that frees up operating dollars from the Des Moines Public Schools budget that can go back into the classroom, can go back into teacher support. So I just want to assure you that you've got a powerful partner in this collaboration. We are excited to be joining with you to bring this to fruition. And we are in it as just as thoroughly as we could possibly be. We are ready to go, and we are looking forward to the opportunity. Again, thank you to the school board for all the efforts you've expended around this project already. We look forward to working with you to bring this to fruition. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Jenkins, will you please call our next speaker?
Miss Loretta Seaman. Miss Loretta, are you on? All right, we'll come back to her. Mr. Brad Titus.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Very good. I'm Brad Titus. I live at 2832 Ridge Road. I am here to speak in favor of the capital project of the stadium. I and my family have some history with Des Moines Public Schools, with Drake, with football, with Des Moines Public School academics, non-sport activities, and sporting activities. And I think that all those things are important. And I have spent my life trying to champion those things. I think this stadium is the right step, the right expense of money in the right direction at this time to support our urban school community. And to inspire our student population to believe in themselves, to be successful as they go through school and after they leave school. I've had 2 kids go through Des Moines Public Schools, including Roosevelt High School. I have family members that have played football for North, for Hoover, for Drake, for Roosevelt. I myself have been in Des Moines for 35 years and have mentored and coached as a volunteer feeder programs into those schools in at least half a dozen different sports, and mentored academics and non-sport activities. My family has been involved in these institutions, Des Moines Public Schools and Drake, since 1916. I served with others on the board's advisory committee for the facilities recommendations for the sales tax, the penny tax allocation. I was the individual that spoke on behalf of that group with our recommendations last year. We did not recommend this at that time. I did not recommend this at that time because I did not believe it was feasible within the scope of that, and because I believed that we could find another way that our very competent and capable administrators, Bill Good and Tom Earhart, and this board could find, and this community could find another way to make this happen. And I believe we've done that. And I hope that you will vote to take this step forward. Academics are important. Non-sport activities are vital. Sport activities are vital. Over the 30 years, 40 years that I've been mentoring, coaching, and all of those environments, I'll guarantee you that I know many students who would not have graduated were it not for sports, who would not have graduated were it not for non-sport activities, who would not have made it to college, and I don't mean on scholarship, were it not for the pride that they had, that they got, and the things that they learned in non-academic activities. Thank you.
Thank you for your input. Ms. Jenkins, please call our next speaker.
Adam Claypool. Adam Claypool, are you on? All right, we'll go back. Art Whitmack. Art Whitmack, are you on? Okay, Colleen Kinney. Colleen Kinney, are you on?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I think the problem is people have to press *6 because I wasn't muted on my phone. But anyway, okay. Colleen Kinney, 632 40th Street, parent of 4 Des Moines Public School students. Madam Chair, school board members, I really appreciate Terry Caldwell Johnson's comments about people being very much overwhelmed and concentrated on other matters right now. has the board considered the optics of this vote, in which gathering spaces, schools, malls, churches, theaters, stadiums are not the places where most people are gathering during this pandemic? Around the world, stadiums are empty of fans and athletes and band members. They have been replaced as temporary morgues and hospitals. I absolutely echo Jackie Norris's praise of the Des Moines Public Schools leadership during this pandemic. I support our students and staff. However, I oppose the stadium. I say let's partner with outstanding higher ed partners like Drake with academic activities like biotechnology. I don't think the board has considered whether people will attend a game at a proposed stadium if they have public health concerns and if they have financial constraints. Many of our families are severely struggling. I want to thank President Marty Martin for participating on this call. I'd like to ask Drake if they would publicly provide pro forma financial statements for Drake University's investments. I'm also concerned about the existing stadium. It is a true heritage treasure, and shudder to think about what would happen if our town were to lose that blue oval. I want to thank Dan and say congratulations to your daughter on your graduation. I share your concerns, as well as Jason's, about the long-term maintenance cost for this. I want to nominate Jason for the committee that is supposed to look at the community activities that people have said will take place in the fall. I'm wondering what the rationale is for voting before that community committee comes out with the recommendations. It should be the other way around. The school board is out of touch with this multi-million-dollar expense. It is absolutely not considering the projected economic woes. It'll be hard for families to even purchase a ticket if there's a game. This is absolutely the wrong time. I urge you to vote no. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Jenkins, do we have further speakers?
We do not.
Would you please go ahead and offer one more chance for some of our...
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Miss Loretta Seaman? Miss Loretta Seaman, are you on?
If you're on the phone, press *6. We just heard.
I don't see her phone number up there, so.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, I've been playing with that *6 and it wasn't working for me. Yes, I would like to speak. First of all, I too agree with Jackie and the speakers that the school board of Des Moines has had a very serious time and has acted in pure excellence. I have gone around because I'm helping with the food bank, and I have watched the people at the different schools, and they're doing a fantastic job. I've met with some teachers because I was the lady a few years ago that helped get extra supplies and new chairs for the library. I want you to know that I'm a Drake graduate. I am, and my first job after student teaching at Lincoln High School was at Washington Irving Junior High. I have listened to everyone tonight, and I want you to know, to the gentleman who said, have you talked to students? Yes, I have. I am known as a community volunteer, so many of the things that have been broached tonight are students that are in your district, in my district, etc. I have been on a school board, and I am in a suburban area where there is a wonderful stadium. It's not as much about the stadium when I think back to Washington Irving Junior High as the dreams we tried to instill in our children at a school where it was not new, it had many problems, and you'd tell them to dream while the ceiling is falling. You would tell them to dream while the paint wasn't quite fresh. And here is a chance for school districts to work with, talk about a partnership. I wish every college would do this. I wish every college would step in and help. They are helping with nonprofits, but what they can do for the school district is the students' dream. Allowing these students, because I have worked with I Have a Dream, And I've worked with the students in the Des Moines Public Schools and the Drake students together. And I've seen such a partnership and such a friendship incur. I know that the pandemic is a problem. I'm telling you, I'm running around making masks, delivering to everyone. It's a tough time, but you know, we're a family. Iowa has always been known as a family, and we'll get through this. It won't be easy, but we will get through this. But we need to remember that our children are living a different life now, doing school at home. Parents' life is different. Everything is different. But that doesn't mean we can't dream and we can't make it better. And I truly believe, in my heart, having worked with students that really didn't have a lot, that we can make it better for them. And I believe this stadium, and we can figure out how. I'm also a fundraiser. We can figure out how we can make it logistically good for parents to come, for everyone to come, because this is a partnership that's going to go beyond the soccer field, beyond the football field. It's going to go between Drake students and our students, and we want them to have the best dreams they can. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you for your comments. Ms. Jenkins, can you try our additional 2 speakers?
Yes. Adam Claypool. And if you're on the phone, I believe it's *6 to unmute yourself. Adam Claypool. All right, how about Mr. Art Whitmack? Art Whitmack. Those were the last 2.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no additional speakers, I am going to close the public hearing. Superintendent Ahart, would you please introduce the matter?
Yes. I recommend the board review the resolution, hold a public hearing, and approve the resolution.
Thank you. May I please have a motion and a second to approve the public hearing and the superintendent's recommendation?
This is Sawyer, so moved.
Caldwell Johnson, second.
We have a motion by Ms. Sawyer and a second by Ms. Caldwell Johnson. Any questions or discussion, board? All right, hearing no further questions or discussion.
I did have a comment. I think maybe there was somebody.
Yeah, I just want to speak on this. I'm hearing what everybody's saying, and certainly reading my emails. I've been, I think, a fairly consistent supporter of this project in the 6 months that we've been discussing it, and I think that I want to address a few things that have been raised. I think that from a board perspective, I want people to know that they're being heard, and I think there's evidence that is happening. This was originally proposed in November, and there was at one point a thought of having a vote on it in January, and we've delayed that and worked that process longer, not necessarily to the enjoyment of all sides, but I think to get a better process. And I think having that longer process has afforded us the ability to hear from the community about other needs that are out there. And I'm very excited about a committee that'll start meeting next month to start evaluating other athletic facilities needs in the district, and that they'll have money to allocate to those needs. So it's something that's very real and can affect some of the concerns that I have heard. I also know we're not where we need to be with our athletic facility or our academic buildings. There's still work to be done. We're a very old district. We get a lot of bang for our buck in that a lot of our buildings have exceeded what maybe their normal lifespan would be, but because they're so well maintained and were well built initially, we're able to get a lot out of them. That doesn't mean that we're satisfied with where they are, but I think we'll continue to invest in those. And the last thing I wanted to address is, I think as a board, we hear the concerns about school pride. We hear about transportation being issues, and there's, I recognize those and respect those concerns. I do think that those are opportunities for our building leadership to be creative, to be thoughtful, and to maintain a good school spirit with a new environment. This is an incredible opportunity. I played sports here. I was a high school baseball player in this school district, and went on. And honestly, one of the reasons I chose the college I chose was because I got to keep playing baseball there. Sports has made an incredible difference in my life, and I'm the person I am now in part because of that. The athletic facilities that we build for our kids are also learning classrooms, and there are opportunities to mold our kids and to give them what's better. And so I'm supportive of this, and I hope my colleagues agree as well.
So Kirsten, I would love to add some comments to that.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Oh, can you hear me? I'm sorry. I want to make sure. I didn't know if I was. Okay, perfect. So I too want to just add some comments to this, and I know this is not an easy decision, and it's very evident in the comments and the emails we've received that there are a lot of emotions that are going into this decision, and there is great pride that people have with their schools and with their home turfs, and that is evident. I think some things that stick out for me with regards to this, why I'm supporting this project tonight. First, I would go back to, and I can't remember, one of the speakers did talk about extracurricular activities, but it's evident that research has even shown that kids who are engaged in extracurriculars, they have higher GPAs, lower dropout rates, lower truancy, better work habits. But beyond that, these are also opportunities for kids to develop their soft skills, which are extremely important, such as like teamwork and leadership, that those are important skills that they can take into adulthood with them. So this is an opportunity for us to invest some dollars into our extracurricular opportunities that are going to be available for our kids, in which we have not done with stadiums to date. I think it's over $630 million we've invested in our buildings so far with our saved dollars. So this is now an opportunity to invest in our sports facilities. Drake, I think, is the right partner for this project. They have a long-standing relationship with our district, as evident by that blue contract that we have, by the Boys and Girls Club, and other educational activities they have available on campus. Drake has even made a commitment to our commitment, which is evident not only by this partnership, but by the economic development that is currently occurring in the Drake neighborhood. The growth in that space that is immediately surrounding Drake campus is going to provide financial return in the tune of millions of tax revenues to our school district in the future. So I would argue Drake is making an investment in our schools right now because of those economic development projects, and we will see returns on this investment in the future. This is also a fiscally responsible decision. This is not a new concept. We have done this before. In fact, I think somebody mentioned having Hoover sharing a football stadium in the past with another high school. I thought it was East. In fact, I thought East and Roosevelt at one time shared a football stadium. Right now, we have a partnership, public-private partnership with East and Grandview. So we are currently engaging in these partnerships in our community. So this is not a new concept. Also, this is a decision that is not about today, but it's about our future. We need to take a look at our financial liability for the district in years to come. And this is about being a good steward of taxpayer dollars. I believe that this project is going to save money in the long run. We know that managing one stadium is going to be less expensive than trying to project costs to update and upgrade our current 3 stadiums that we have in the district, which we certainly, I don't believe, can afford to do that at this time. So I think this is a fiscally responsible decision that we have in front of us. Again, I would just echo, this is not an easy decision but I truly believe this is one that's going to be beneficial for our district in years to come. Thank you.
Hi, Kirsten, can I talk?
Of course.
All right. Hi, Heather Anderson. This is not an easy vote. I haven't been completely in favor of this in the past.
Unknown participant is now joining.
And I feel like I put the work in to this. I attended almost every meeting except for one. I think I did listen. I heard both sides pretty evenly with emails and forums and messages and etc. So that was kind of helpful and kind of not helpful. But the thing that the turning point for me was the formulation of the committee and the commitment of the district to improve each school's infrastructure and athletic facilities. I felt like in the long run, like Kelly said, you're not going to see it overnight, but in the long run, each school would be able to improve their facilities. And with this committee, you would have a voice representing each community, and I thought that sounded fair. And I think this is not an easy vote. I do have some feelings about the timing, but it's not like this was planned, the pandemic, and we have to move forward. So I guess that's all I have to say.
Thank you. I also just wanted to add, because I don't know if this has been highlighted enough, but the ADA compliance of this new stadium is going to make it possible that no matter what mobility issues community members, students, parents, grandparents may have, this is going to make it possible for them to attend a football game and hope a soccer game, to see their kids on the marching band in a way that might not have been possible at some of the home fields. And a lot of those investments that it would take just to even bring those up to compliance aren't going to really add to the value or the overall seating amount in many of our places. And so for me, I just think about that ease of accessibility and in making our spaces as accessible as possible to all members of the community. I'm also hopeful that additional partnerships might come out of this. I had talked a little bit with Dr. Ahart about an idea of maybe partnering with DART on Friday evenings to make it easier for our students and our community members to get to the games. So I think there are lots of future partnership opportunities that will come not only from this project, but from other ideas as well. So do any other board members have any comments?
Madam Chair, I do, and thank you not only for the members of the public that participated tonight, but thanks for all of the feedback over the course of the last few weeks via email, and then actually dating back to late 2019 and early 2020 to all of those people that participated in our forums. I think for better or for worse, the Central Stadium proposal has created a buzz about the necessity for Des Moines Public Schools to invest in athletics and activities. The district's 20-year track record of investing over $600 million in the construction of new and or renovated facilities, I think clearly paves the way for us to now focus our attention on ways that we not only continue to reinvest in our school infrastructure, but ways that we can invest in athletics and activities without apology. I think someone raised the issue this evening about the role that neighborhood schools play in anchoring our communities and our neighborhoods. And I think the same is really true for sports facilities and venues. I think that this Drake Stadium could certainly serve to further anchor the Drake neighborhood and our urban core. But I also think that an investment in existing facilities that are within the boundaries of our community's neighborhoods can also serve to be a driving force for neighborhood revitalization that I think is so critical as we begin to think about ways that we build up our neighborhoods, the places where our students live and the places where our families live. So recognizing that I think at one point were in a really interesting spot, not knowing exactly how to strike sort of the best balance around this project. For me personally, I felt that investing in the Drake Stadium, absent an investment in other facilities across our district, really just didn't seem to me to be the balance that I thought we needed to achieve as we begin to think about equity, quality, and access to really strong facilities for all of our students to enjoy across the district. So, and I'm not for sure that everyone realizes this. I sort of feel like maybe the work that this board has done to really begin to think through how we invest in facilities through pulling together a facilities advisory committee that's focused solely on athletics has somehow been lost in this entire conversation. And so I want to lift up that not only am I supporting the Drake project, but I'm supporting it because I think it gives us an opportunity to really rethink and reimagine what an investment in athletics and activities would be across the district, and matching the investment of the Drake project and maybe even more dollars in ways that we really begin to rethink and reimagine what athletic facilities should be for our students across the district. So I want people to understand that while we're making, I believe this evening, a decision to move forward possibly with the Drake project, that's not absent additional investments in our already existing facilities and in our communities and in our schools and in our students. So I feel like we're so focused on what's happening at Drake that people aren't thinking through or thinking about what the board is doing to create a much stronger legacy for our community around investment in athletics that I think will accrue to the benefit of every single comprehensive high school, every single student, and will sustain our needs well into the future. So I couldn't leave this conversation tonight without lifting up what this board, I think, is planning to do relative to investing in other endeavors across the district that I think will accrue benefits well into the future.
Thank you, Terry, for raising up those issues. Any further comments, board members?
Yeah, I just have a couple here. So I want to just, related to something Terry said, and what some other people have said, we keep hearing this called the Drake Project. I just want to point out this is not a Drake project. This is a Des Moines Community Stadium built on Des Moines community land near Drake. It's our stadium on land that's given to us by Drake, if it comes through. We'll see how the vote plays out. I just wanted to make that clear that this is not Drake's building. This is our building that they'll use occasionally. Second, somebody earlier mentioned that it was really not fair to call this a soccer stadium since it won't hold all of our games there. But I just want to, again, make clear that this is absolutely a soccer stadium because the rest of the district does not have a single pitch that's up to regulation size. Our field should be 20 or 30 yards wider at least. When our kids are going to the suburbs to play, they're playing on fields that are 20 or 30 yards wider. At County, we have access to good sized proper fields, but those aren't ours. And again, that's something that we have to travel even further to. The stadium at Drake is more centrally located than any other spot we could find in town. And yeah, we can't host everything here, but that was never the intention. That's to ease pressure on the buildings we have at our schools that will be fixed up with this committee and their charge. My bias is towards soccer. I'm creeping up on 40 here, and I still play soccer. I coach soccer. I watch soccer. I love soccer. That is what I hope to improve out of all of this. but having a really nice football field to go with it is a benefit as well. So yeah, I really hope that our investments here in the stadium and around town can help enhance soccer and volleyball and basketball and whatever else needs improving.
Thank you.
Kirsten,
Yes,
if I could say something, this is Dewana.
of course. I'm just not
I
good with
just-
date times when I can't see everybody.
No, that's okay, no problem. I do want to say that I struggled with this a lot. At first, was probably the ones that, you know, even shared that with my board colleagues. I think it was the timing of all of this, which, as Heather said, we have no control over the timing of this. I do want to thank my board colleagues, because I believe since November, we have been dealing with the stadium issue, but we have combed through any and everything possible to ask Tom and his team to come up with numbers, to give us answers, and to really help us as we're making decisions. I will say too that I was glad to hear that we are having a committee that is involving community members and also people within the school to be able to guide and give us recommendations as we look at spending dollars in the future. That was something that that helped me, but also realizing that we do have to continue with the business here of this district. And it is unfortunate that it is happening during this time. But I also do want to thank Tom and his team as well for the work that they've done in answering all of our questions. Every email we've received, I think if it struck a question with us, we asked. And so I do want to thank the entire board for the work that we've done. I am a person that is in support of this stadium. I know someone asked the question of if we have talked to students. Not only have I been in the classroom and talked to students, I have emails from students. And the one thing that continues to ring true in my ears, students that say, don't we deserve to have something like fill in the blank, Ankeny, West Des Moines, whoever you want to call it. You know, that rings true in my ear for students, and they want something that they can take their family and their friends to, that they can show off to. And so I do know that we have many students who are in support of this, and I want to be a voice for those students that are not able to be in this conversation today. I'm sure that many of the callers we have are adults, and so I do want to be able to speak up for students and say, I know this is something that they want and they stand for, and I also stand for this as well. Thanks, Kristen.
Okay, if there are no further questions or discussion from the board, Ms. Jenkins, will you please call the vote?
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Ms. Bradley,
Yes.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson,
Yes.
Mr. Cody,
Yes.
Ms. Delagardelle,
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
The vote is approved 7-0. The next item on our agenda is item E1, our monitoring report, Algebra 1, Part 3, Black male students. Dr. Ahart,
Unknown participant is now exiting.
over to you for your presentation.
Unknown participant is now exiting.
Thank you. I might give it a second as folks leave and we have that voiceover telling us that.
Give it up for Mama Norris. Give it up for Mama Norris.
Telling ya.
You guys listening too? No, I just heard Mom say hi.
We might want to ask our callers in to mute their microphones.
Might be.
Okay. All right. I think we're back. Tonight is our part 3 of our SMART goal on males of color, Algebra 1. We have Sarah Doherty, who is our secondary director of teaching and learning, and Noelle Nelson, our executive director of teaching and learning, with us tonight. This is a report that unfortunately
is now exiting.
We're in this position because of the pandemic that we don't have the richness that we would hope to have in especially our SMART goal monitoring. we appreciate the board's patience in rolling with us. There is some encouraging news in this report, but I want to temper that with, just with the challenge that's in front of us to continue to engage with our students, especially as we look to what we might be able to provide over the summer in a meaningful way, particularly for those students that we're hoping to in the middle school range to accelerate into algebra pre-9th grade. That's something that the entire team has really been focused on, and we're striving to find the right information and timely information and hopefully accurate projections on what the pandemic is going to bring to our community. That obviously is impacting how it is that we're able to connect with students and provide that personalized instruction that we're striving for to ensure that we continue to make progress on this goal. Sarah and Noelle, are you both online?
I am. Yep.
Great. If folks want to, this is a little bit challenging. I'm trying to watch the screen and also watch my reports, but why don't we go ahead with the presentation?
Okay.
And kind of take questions. The other thing I wanted to mention too is that we did provide, as the several board members have recognized, we did provide an accompanying document that we've not done in the past to try to help our community and our board members sense make out of the data that we're presenting to hopefully provide additional clarity with what's in the actual formal monitoring report.
All right, I'm going to share my screen that will include the presentation for this evening. Good evening, and we are back for part 3 of the board goal number 3, Algebra 1 and Black male students. I'm going to just cue it up here. All right, so as we always begin with is a restatement of our board goal. And it is the percent of Black male students earning a B or higher in Algebra 1 by the end of 9th grade will increase from 17% to 35% by August 2023. And we are tracking annually our progress toward that goal with these benchmark percentages. Dr. Ahart talked a little bit about our thinking about how we'll measure this at the end of the year, but these are our benchmarks as they stand. He also referenced a document we provided about how this measure is calculated. On the surface, measuring grade seems extremely straightforward, very simple, but it is deceptively complex. And so we wanted to take a moment, because this report itself is only reporting on one of the progress measures. We wanted to take the opportunity to really highlight and take some time for discussion if necessary about how this goal is indeed calculated. Our goal measure, the percent of Black males earning a B or higher in Algebra 1 by the end of 9th grade, includes in its denominator all students, all Black male 9th grade students, and it includes every Black male student who has already taken Algebra 1, for instance, in 8th grade, all Black male students who are currently enrolled in Algebra 1 as 9th graders, and it includes students who are not yet enrolled in Algebra 1. And we discussed some of those reasons in previous reports as to why students may not be enrolled in Algebra 1 in 9th grade, but they're all included in our denominator. In our numerator, you can see we have students who earned a B or higher, and that's an average of semester 1 and semester 2 at that end measure in 8th grade algebra, and students who have earned a B or higher, the average of both semesters in Algebra 1 in 9th grade. And so I wanted to pause and just ask, and we can also pick this up at discussion at the end, ask if there's any clarity needed on this measure itself.
Whoops, this is Terry. I do have one quick question. And it really goes to helping me understand the letter grade in the context of how it can be reflected in test scores. In other words, is there an expectation that achieving a B or higher could then transition into a higher test score in math? I'm just trying to, in my mind, sort of correlate our goal and our measure with typically what we would see on the back end relative to scores.
Yeah, you have it exactly right. And that's been one of our discrepancies, and we're keeping a close eye on that. We're validating grades with our MAP assessment scores because we believe a B or higher in algebra is a good indicator, a valid indicator of college and career readiness on that nationally normed assessment. Exactly right.
I would just also like to add that several years ago, we moved to a standards reference system, not with this specific goal in mind, but with this principle in mind, in that we saw a very poor correlation between grades that students were receiving and alignment with standardized tests, including the ACT. And so part of the rationale for moving to a standards reference system was to establish some consistency, classroom to classroom and school to school for the same class, and also ultimately to be able to correlate grades based on what was intended to be understood as a result of a course, aligning with a standardized test so that there was more validity to the grading system. We're not where we want to be ultimately, but we're much closer than we were a number of years ago.
Okay. And if there's more clarity needed and discussion, we can certainly have that at any point. I wanted to provide also some context for the data we're going to be looking at tonight. We did have fewer students, and this was part of our Part 2 report a few months ago. We had slightly fewer students in semester 2, and that has some impact on the percentage of students receiving a B or better. We went from 71.2% of our Black male students enrolled or had taken Algebra 1 in semester 1 to 65.2%. Anecdotally, however, we also have noted a higher fidelity or use of the curriculum with integrity. As a reminder, these teachers and schools and we ourselves are engaging in this new curriculum for the first time ever. We had just begun establishing some monitoring protocols and working with schools, including our APs, who support really deeply our Algebra 1 PLCs in understanding better that fidelity and starting to attempt to make some correlation between outcomes for students and the extent to which curriculum was being implemented with integrity. And unfortunately, we were interrupted in that study just as school closure began. But I do want to make a note here. Our associate principals, particularly in our high schools, have been a tremendous asset and partner in ensuring that teachers are learning and using the curriculum. And so we were partnering and had been partnering them with them all year, but that was underway. And I also want to note here that Q3 is not a formal reporting period for students or teachers. It's strictly used as a midpoint for board goal monitoring. And so what we have represented in these grades is learning on one, maybe perhaps another half of a topic reported. And so those are important contextual things to keep in mind as we look at the actual data. And I'm going to bring up the live dashboard here in a tab to show you. And I'm not sure how large this is. I also have it in a slide. It's hard for me to tell. I'm sharing my screen, but we're looking right here at progress measure. This progress measure, the percent of Black males enrolled in Algebra 1 as ninth graders who are earning a B or higher in this particular report. And as you can see, quarter one, we moved into semester 1 at 19.7%. And at the end of quarter 3, which ended March 13th before we left, we had 40.5% of our Black male students earning a B or higher in Algebra 1. Go back to that presentation. I pulled that out here. And I just want to reiterate from a student's perspective, this measure says, I am in Algebra 1 right now as a Black male student, and I am earning a B or higher in the first half of the second semester. So our benchmark goal was 21.4%. 40.5% of our students were achieving that goal. And in those context pieces, we talk about the fact that we had a fewer students, but that doesn't account for all of the growth. We have teachers who are learning the curriculum, teachers who are implementing it with support and integrity, and students who are responding to this kind of learning as well. So to preview from quarter 4, that's probably helpful. It's probably a little bigger there. To preview quarter 4, we will not have spring MAC data for comparison this year. And we don't really have winter MAC data for 9th grade students because they do not take it in the winter. And so we are really looking forward to the fall, no matter what modalities we're returning in, to understand and validate these grades with some external assessment measures. It will be important to know, though, no matter what we are measuring against in grades, it will not be the full scope of Algebra 1 learning because of our continuous learning structures. Students have, and I think this is a terrific celebration, been given a couple of options for how they'll proceed after during school closure. And I have some percentages here of how our students have chosen to proceed. Option 1, they could keep their grade as of 3:30, and we had 34%, almost 35% of our Black male students elect for that option. But we had 64.41% of our Black male students choosing option 2, which was work to improve their grade as of March 30th. And I think that's something to celebrate. And it tells the story of our students wanting to and agreeing to work to improve their grade and their learning, because that was about revisiting prior learning and the desire to do better. I think that's something to celebrate and something we'll continue to look at over time. What this data is telling us, although we can't study it in many of the traditional ways by being in classrooms next to students with teachers and with administrators in some of those same modalities, it does continue to point to the levers that we have identified as part of the problem-solving process as being the right places to start, including that implementation of high-quality curriculum, understanding our data literacy, and as it's been mentioned already in our conversation, how important it is to have a balanced assessment system that validates students' learning and our teaching, that access to grade level expectations that we know this curriculum represents, and we know that teachers are setting for students. And I really think it's maybe not a direct indicator, but it's an indicator that we may be moving in the right direction. The willingness of our students to continue to work with their teachers during school closure to improve outcomes and their grade. One of the levers we're able to continue to move during school closure is that providing teachers and access and learning around that high quality curriculum. And that's something that I'm really excited to say we're continuing even next week. In order for us to meet our own internal expectation and goal of 100% of 6th through 8 math, Algebra 1, Algebra 2, and geometry classrooms to implement with integrity, we're continuing with some professional development opportunities. So PD for 6th through 8th grade teachers and instructional coaches will actually begin next week, as will professional development for our high school teachers, because we know Algebra 1 is where our goal lies, but We know that that's not the only step students take in their math journey toward graduation and beyond. And so that does include Algebra 2 and geometry, but they'll also be receiving learning this month. And then we'll have specifically summer learning for leaders. We know that Courtney and I and Noelle and Mike can continue to coordinate and collaborate and lead the charge. But an important investment in this, in reaching this goal, is empowering our leaders to own the leadership of this learning in their building and to feel they have all of the tools and understanding and access to do that. And so those things are still on the horizon.
Exiting.
And that is the conclusion of our presentation on our board goal tonight. I'll relinquish my screen.
Thanks, Sarah. Before we go any further, may I have a motion and a second to approve item E1, monitoring report, Algebra 1, Part 3, Black male students?
Cody, move approval.
Barron, second.
All right, we have a motion by Cody and a second by Barron. I will go ahead and open up the floor to discussion and questions by my board colleagues.
Hey, I do have a couple of hopefully quick ones. I know I asked this several months ago, but I forgot. When we say they have a B or higher, how does that translate into the SRG scores?
I just muted myself, sorry. A B or higher indicates that students have mastered a majority of grade level content.
Right, but are they getting a 2 or a 2.5 or a 3?
That is a Courtney, will you help me answer that one?
I can take that. Courtney Wallstrom, secondary math curriculum coordinator. A B would be a 2.5 or higher. And to have a 2.5, the guidance is that they had to master at least half of the grade level standards.
Okay. And then a related question, when I taught accelerated math in the middle school, I know the 8th graders or the 8th graders that were taking algebra had to get a certain grade to get the credit for that. Is that also at 2.5 or is that a little higher for them?
That actually has changed.
Okay.
There was a change in the state law last year that requires every student who completes a high school credit course, no matter their grade level, to receive the high school credit. We do provide 8th graders or any other middle schoolers taking a high school course with the option to select pass or no pass so that it doesn't impact their high school GPA. But they do receive the high school credit no matter their grade, as long as they have a passing grade.
Okay, so I guess that brings up another question. If I were an 8th grader and I chose pass fail, where would I rank on this B or higher metric?
So we've actually, sorry, go ahead,
Sarah.
Go ahead.
You would be in the denominator because as a 9th grader, the next year is when you would be counted, but you would not count in the numerator as earning a B or higher. It is only students in 8th grade or 9th grade who have a B or higher on their transcript who are counting towards this goal in the numerator.
So hypothetically, if 100% of the 8th graders took pass fail, then we'd have a 0 on that?
That was how we had been calculating that. Mary Grinstead and I have been working together with her team to, because students are being given feedback in alignment with those scales as well, so that we can potentially capture that information before then students make the choice and it gets translated to pass fail if they choose that, so that we can get a more accurate idea.
Sure, yeah.
And that was just something that, for instance, our new goal wasn't something we were measuring before in this way. And so now that we know better, we're going to have to, we can adjust the way that we're capturing that data.
So would it be fair to say that some of these kids would have kind of a phantom grade that maybe they took or didn't, but they'd still pass?
me that question another way.
Yeah, right. So if I were a kid who was earning a 2, let's say, and I chose, nope, I want the pass fail, not the 2, we would at least be able to capture that they got a 2 and not a 2.5?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, yeah, and then just one more question, then I'll let somebody else add it. When we had, you said we had fewer students in semester 2. Is that just from kids dropping the class, from kids moving? What accounts for that?
Yeah, that was a pretty critical, important part of our report last on part 2, because we were talking about that specific progress measure. We had in total at the end of by the end of last semester, 7 students were placed in a special education course or an off-grade level course pretty early in that, like before October in first semester, and into an ELL math course. And then 6 of those students dropped at the end of the semester, likely because of they need something else. So those were where those students went. And I think we look at those percentages, and I think we've talked to how important it is to look at the raw numbers as well. It doesn't mean that every one of those 13 students' lives will be affected by how their math learning progresses. But it was 7 students or 9 students before the semester moved into a class that was off grade level for more support. And then at the end of first semester, 6 more.
Okay, thank you.
So, hi, Sarah, this is Kelly. I just have a quick question, a more clarifying question. So if it's in here, I apologize. So the percentage is 40.5 Black males who are enrolled in algebra are earning a B or higher. And I had sent the question in ahead of time, wanting some numbers, really looking at the ELL and the special ed population. And you guys sent me some, like the denominator numbers. So 217, I think is what you sent me, was there are 217 9th grade Black males that could be earning it, right? That would be eligible to be taking algebra. Is that correct?
Ask me that question again.
Okay,
Sorry.
so in the total population of 9th grade students, which are just over 2,300 students, we have 217 that are Black males. Is that correct? Okay, I'm seeing Courtney raise or shake her head yes. Okay.
Yes, it is.
And so of those 217, what's the percentage or what's the number that is actually enrolled in algebra that could be earning a B or better, right? Because I don't see that number, like how many of that 217, 100% aren't obviously enrolled in algebra. So what percent are enrolled in algebra? Or maybe have taken it in 8th grade and earned a B or better.
I'm going to have to look back.
It's 132.
Thanks, Mary.
It's if you hover over the metric for the second metric, it's the denominator for that enrolled.
Okay.
So 132.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or discussion, board? Okay. We have a motion by Cody and a second by Barron. Please go ahead.
Question. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay.
My unmute fast enough.
It's okay. I think I'm leaving enough wait time and I do not have this mastered yet. I apologize.
No, you left plenty of time. My finger just wasn't working very well.
Okay.
So this is really sort of asking you to look into your crystal ball, but recognizing that math is a series of building blocks. And by the time we get back to this, hopefully in the fall, we'll have been away
Angela
from,
Boston
is now exiting.
would have been away from full classroom engagement and activity for a period of time. Can you talk a little bit about what the path forward looks like, especially given the significant catch up that we likely are going to have, and also the sensitivity around where different students sort of left off versus where they pick up, how much additional relearning is going to be required, and how quickly we feel like we're going to have the right sort of launching point to sort of begin to accelerate.
Yeah, so thank you for giving me the opportunity to say, yeah, this will be a crystal ball answer, because there are a lot of factors involved in that. A couple of things I'm thinking, and I know that this is collective thinking amongst a group of people who are just really at the foundations of this work. One, I think it will include, no matter what, knowing where students are coming back to us at, and recognizing that could be in a lot of different places due to a lot of different factors. So knowing that very, very clearly and not making assumptions about that is going to be really important for us to know how to address it. The other thing I think we need to be careful of, and Courtney passed this excellent article on to me just this afternoon that that resonated with me, that this would be a very easy time for us to revert back to procedural math learning. And I think it's really important to only do that when data indicates on students that that's what they need. And we must continue to press ahead with the kind of the balanced conceptual application and procedural learning we know that kids need to move forward. So that's really important, is keeping our eyes on the prize and not letting our expectations slip, but knowing where kids are at and how to continue to support them to get there. I think that's going to be really important too. And then I think part of the thinking that has to go into that too is to be very careful about the idea of catching kids up and getting them into some new on grade level content simultaneously, and to not let that become the structures that we will need to get there become the norm and the expectation. So those are some big conceptual responses to that. But I really do think it starts with knowing where kids are at based on a common early assessment, and really holding true to what we believe is so important for math learning for students, and not allowing us to kind of depart from those core values that we're really holding close to about the kind of ambitious learning that we know our kids deserve.
Well, and Sarah, just to add on to that, we're going to have to strike a balance of understanding that a lot of our families are in exceptional times of stress right now. And so how do we also balance the social and emotional needs and prioritizing foundational needs through various assessment practices? So I think that's going to be a key in our return to learn plans, is everything that Sarah said, plus acknowledging that families are in crisis and will continue to be in crisis, and how do we meet those needs as well, so that learning can even be a priority.
And just to kind of continue that thought, our plan to return effectively for kids will only be effective if it considers the well-being and the capacity of the adults who are going to execute that plan with our students. And so to recognize where our teachers are at in their well-being and their ability to carry through with this is going to be important too. And thanks for bringing the balance to that. I agree.
I would just like to mention that if I may formally ask for your permission, but we're recording this meeting, obviously, because it's an official board meeting, but I would like to capture the question that Terry just raised and the responses from Sarah and Noel and Courtney and send that to our governor's office, because I really believe that these are really, your question, Terry, really got to the root of what is really impacting the learning of our students. We're talking specifically here about our black male algebra report, but also very pressing on my mind is early literacy in particular, and just how do we re-engage with our students when we have that opportunity and make the best use of that time without overstraining the students, feeling like we're assessing them just for the sake of assessing them, but knowing that we need to know where they are so we know the appropriate entry point to really start instruction and make up for the lost opportunities and have a good idea of how much learning loss, I hate that term, but how much learning loss has occurred over this period of interruption to the educational process. So I think that question really gets to the root of really what we're struggling with as a system right now.
I think they call it COVID slide.
Yeah,
Well
and we're going to slide it right into summer, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, any other discussion or comments, board? Next time, I'm going to come with a really good math question. I always feel like I'm a little bit out of my element in math, but you guys said I have to try harder. So I appreciated the fraction breakdown. That was very helpful for me. So.
You can always join us in IMPD next week. There will be a lot of math happening there, and you are welcome.
Okay, I'll keep that in mind. All right, if there are no further board comments or questions or discussion, Ms. Jenkins, will you please call our vote?
Yes. Ms. Anderson.
Yes.
Mr. Barron.
Yes.
Ms. Bradley.
Yes.
Ms. Caldwell Johnson.
Yes.
Mr. Cody.
Yes.
Ms. Delagardelle.
Yes.
Ms. Sawyer.
Yes.
Great. That brings us to the information only items on our agenda. We have an amendment to the Des Moines Retirement System Plan and Trust that's there for information. I think that it was Kaylin who had asked a great question about information only items. These are just kind of to provide board members with context and information about topics that may come up for further discussion and vote in the future, but are not ready to be acted upon at this time. Next on the agenda, we just have items of privilege, and board members, since we did not have a work session this evening, I wanted to make sure to give you a little bit of an update. I reached out to AJ regarding some ongoing work for our board development. And he's currently working with Aaron to kind of look at our board self-evaluations over the past few quarters. And he's gonna be working to put together kind of a one-pager of where he sees we are and some things that the board could be doing to continue to improve our focus on student outcome governance and some of our processes. And then it would be up to the board after that to kind of decide what is it that we would like to act on, what things would we like to tackle next, and then he can actually help us with any and all of that work moving forward. As you know, he works for the Council of Great City Schools right now. We're really lucky we don't have to enter into a new coaching contract or anything like that. That's all kind of in the scope of the work that he's doing with the council. I don't really have any further details beyond that other than he's working with Aaron to kind of create a baseline for us and kind of pull some of that together, because I know we were kind of questioning, like, why do we keep doing these evaluations? And through his conversation, he said, what we really need is a coach or someone who can really strongly lead us through that process when we do those evaluations and kind of help us set goals for where we want to go in the future. So he's going to take over and look at that data and make some recommendations on some goals for the future. So I hope that helps give an update on where we're at with that and with our self-evaluation. one of the things he and I did talk about as a real possibility is evaluating our agendas and how we structure those moving forward. And he said that, you know, it's really up to the board to decide what we want on our agenda. So those can be conversations we can have in the future. Do other board members have updates to share, or?
I do have one quick update for the board on the athletic advisory committee work. One of the things that we needed to do was to secure a facilitator for the effort. And there was one name that was shared during one of our board calls, and following that, I also reached out to the Greater Des Moines Partnership, the Community Foundation, and one other entity that I can't recall off the top of my head right now, to identify other potential consultants, facilitators that might have the capacity and or the bandwidth to undertake a project of this size and scope. So I took the liberty of reaching out to 5 entities and or individuals to ascertain their interest. And I have received proposals from 3, with the remaining 3 scheduled to have them into me on Friday. And the proposal was just a very brief scope of work, credentials, approach to task, deliverables, and cost proposal. I asked them to keep their responses to 2, maximum 3 pages. And so what I'd like to do once I have all of those in hand is to share those with the board so that you have the benefit of helping us decide who brings the best proposal for our consideration and can actually undertake this work. And the reason why that is important is because our proposal for the Community Foundation requires us to actually have a proposal that's submitted along with our funding request. And so the sooner that we are able to zero in on our facilitator, the more quickly Lori Breno can complete her work and attach that proposal for consideration by the Community Foundation staff. So just know that you'll be getting a bundle of proposals. What I'll probably do is send those to Erin and have her batch those and get them out to everybody. And then what I'm going to suggest is that we might try to convene at some point early next week and review the proposals, make our determination, and then proceed accordingly.
Thanks, Terry. I know that that's taken some work on your part, and we appreciate it. Board members, if there's no further updates, I'll turn it over to Dr. Ahart.
Actually, sorry, Kirsten, if I could just have a brief minute for a point of personal privilege.
Of course.
And it really comes down to, we know through COVID that Tom and his staff and teachers and the entire DMPS staff has done a tremendous job of adjusting to this new life as we have had to shift gears rather quickly in terms of making sure that our kids have what they need to continue their education. But the one thing, especially as a parent of a child in the district, that I'm realizing is I also want to make sure to recognize the work that the students and the parents are putting into this, because I think that it's one thing. And I just know what I've experienced in the last week has just been challenging, and thinking through, I'm fortunate I can think through things and I'm able to walk through that with my child, and but also know that it's very challenging and difficult. And so I just want to really give a shout out to the parents that are doing everything they can to help their kids through this process, and the kids that understanding that this is a new environment and are working with their teachers and connecting hopefully with their peers and working with their parents to get through this curriculum. So I just wanted to share that. I'm empathizing with all of you right now as a parent in the district, but certainly we are here, and I hope that you reach out when you do have questions.
Thanks, Kelly. I think I can now turn it over to Dr. Ahart, but if anybody has anything, jump in. Okay. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Kirsten. Yeah, Kelly sort of stole my thunder there. This has been, you know, and continues to be, and I'm getting tired of this word, but an unprecedented challenge for the entire system and indeed the entire community. Something that I'm having discussions with anybody who will listen on is trying to motivate. I don't think there's much that we can do at the federal level, unfortunately, but attempting to motivate our state leadership to really formulate a meaningful plan for how we're going to progress through this pandemic moving forward. There are steps that can be taken. Right now, and I shared this with the board yesterday evening, we had another staff member, this time in food and nutrition, be diagnosed with the virus. We've taken precautions. We've reacted, I think, very appropriately. Unfortunately, what we're learning is that the Iowa Department of Public Health and Polk County Department of Public Health are doing precious little in terms of contact tracing, and you know that's not intended to be critical, except to say that if we want to get to a point where we can bring our students and staff safely back to school and truly engage in the educational process in a way that we don't feel is putting both our students and staff in the face of danger, we need to take steps as a broader community system in order to achieve that. At this point in time, it does not appear as though that's the will of the state. So I say first that you know, we're working very hard at attempting to you know, we're going to be surveying our families here by the end of this week. We have a meeting tomorrow morning, or I'm sorry, Thursday morning, with our Return to Learn team again, where we hope to finalize a survey that we'll be sending out to families to you know, essentially check their temperature in terms of how they're feeling, how they're doing, and what their thinking is in regards to a return to school in some form of what we used to consider normal. But that doesn't address what largely needs to happen in the community. So I'm not sure how to better engage a broader sector of the community. I'm actively trying to do that, but I just want everybody to be well aware that schools, and we're not the only institutions. Some of you are working for institutions that are in the same boat, but I feel like we're sort of in between a rock and a hard place. You know, we're being asked to make some decisions that are going to be tremendously impactful, not only to the families that we directly serve and of course our staff, but also are tremendously impactful to the broader community. And at this point in time, we're being asked to make those plans with a grossly inadequate level of information in regards to what the actual circumstances are in regards to public health, and a modicum of resources to actually continue to do what we're expected to do under the circumstances that we're expected to do it. So I've been speaking with my colleagues. I had a very nice conversation with Dr. Cheryl Logan, who's the superintendent in Omaha, this morning. And I'll be talking with Dr. Bedell, the superintendent in Kansas City. I believe it's on Friday, it's either Thursday morning or Friday morning. And I've been in touch with my colleagues in St. Paul and Minneapolis as well, just trying to get the best thinking on how it is that we can best approach re-engaging what we so desperately need to do, and that is the personal contact of our teachers with our students, not with a particular emphasis on our SMART goals, but certainly not exclusive to that. So we have a real, I think, steep climb in front of us as a school district, and certainly as a city and as a state. And the schools are, in a unique way, sort of at the crux of how it is that we can move forward and reopen the economy. Another term that I'm getting a bit tired of, but Kelly stated it very well. Our families can't get back to work without the supports of either the schools or some other player to ensure that our children have the care that they need, not to mention the education that they need. And the parents have the ability to leave home in the morning and return to work and earn a living and put food on the table and pay the bills. So we're at a really unique juncture in our history, and I hope a juncture that stays unique as we move forward. But we really do need, as a community, to pull together and get a plan so that we can wisely move forward in a truly informed fashion. And at this point in time, we don't really have the data that we need to be able to formulate plans that we can be confident will allow us to move forward educationally, but also protect the health and safety of our students and staff. That being said, I want to congratulate the graduating class of 2020. As I would congratulate every graduating class, but especially this class, who has endured just something that I'm sure will be memorable, and we're doing our best to make a positive memory out of these unique circumstances. And I can't thank our staff enough, especially our teachers who are who had to do a dramatic shift in how they're operating. They're taking care of their own families while at the same time attempting to serve our students, and doing so with this sort of film, it feels like, that's between us, even when we're communicating electronically, without being able to capitalize on those personal relationships as effectively as they can in real life. So everybody's just been putting their shoulder to the wheel, and using their ingenuity and their creativity and their passion for our kids to make sure that our entire community has the support that they know that they can typically rely on from the schools, and we'll continue to do our level best to make sure that we're taking our kids back in physically as soon as we can, and then not overburdening them with assessment, but working very collaboratively and understanding and empathy to make sure that we can pick up where we left off, make up for lost time, and then forge a course forward. I think that's all I have, Kirsten.
Thanks, Tom. I know that you and your team have been working really hard, and there have been a lot of conversations in our community about the best ways forward. And thank you for putting our kids and their families first in our decisions. We have no further business before us this evening, board. So the meeting is now adjourned without objection. If there are no objections, I guess I should say. And we do have a closed session. Why doesn't everybody take just like a couple minutes if you need to run to the restroom or something, and then make sure that you're in place and ready to go at 8:10? Does that sound good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.